Would you please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance? Our Father, we come to you this evening asking for your mercy and your blessings. We'd ask that you watch over us as we deliberate the business of the city. We'd ask that you protect our armed forces, be with our first responders, and keep our city safe. We'd ask that you watch over all of us and all of our families and keep us in your mercy. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Kathy Smith.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have 4 people that have signed up for the public forum this evening. So first this evening will be Florence Banbridge.
Hi, I'm back, and I wish I wasn't. I'm not the only person on 11th Street who is unhappy with what's happening to the neighborhood because of this one house that could have been taken care of a long time ago when people started calling. It wasn't me who started calling at first. I'm not the person who was threatened and told not to get my husband while this landlord is screaming at a senior neighbor. I just can't believe this is happening. So now it's been inspected, and what? I don't know what's happening, but so now Kevin Parrish was willing to give me some information, but he says, you know, we're in an R3 zone, which means, I asked this question, I'll keep it simple. Since I'm in an R3 zone, I'm across the street. Can I get a permit to remodel for $10,000, build a room on, and make my house an apartment building without permits? Can I? That's all I want to know. If I can, then there's not a problem.
The email that you sent me this afternoon, Mr. Parrish had already left for the day. He will be contacting you tomorrow. All right. Next is Kim Williams.
Hi, my name is Kim Williams. I live at 801 49th Street in Vienna. So I just kind of want to put into context what she's talking about. She's not the only person who is very upset about this. I got a call, talked to a woman this morning actually, who lives on 11th, and this whole neighborhood down there is upset. So when we were here the last time, Mr. Mayor, you explained to us, although the house on 11th that we were speaking of, which is classified as a single-family house on the tax rolls for Wood County, this is what the house looked like before anything was done to it. But, Mr. Mayor, you explained to us that this house exists in what's known as an R3 district. Okay, and so under the ordinances, so people understand what an R3 district is, that it can be, you can have a single family home in that, an R3 district. You can have a duplex in there, and then what I highlighted here is an apartment. And all of those things, the intent of the of this ordinance is this district will regulate the conversion of large older homes to duplex usage and or apartment usage. So as I showed you the picture here just a second ago, it's a pretty nice little house, 1,300 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. Now, you had a map, and I was able to take, you know, it's hard to print maps off that are in color, but anyway, this is the area here. This is 11th Street where she's talking about. It's in, I guess, a purple color that signifies this R3 zone that allows what happened to this house, 1,300 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1 bath. It has been converted into multiple apartments. I'm not exactly sure how many. Each bedroom and room that has been added now has a bathroom, which consists of a toilet, a sink, and a shower. And it meets the condition of being apartment because it has a kitchen. And by kitchen, they mean a mini fridge and a microwave or a hot plate. That doesn't really meet my criteria for a kitchen, but regardless, you can see why some of the neighbors are upset. Here's what the house looks like today. Okay? So we have that nice Spanish-style porch that's been enclosed, and we have a metal door on top. Now, you can't really see in this picture, but right here on the door, it says A. I assume that means apartment A. Here is another angle of this house. This area here is where new construction, they just added on, bumped it out, whatever, that's some other room. So like I said, what started out as a 3-bedroom house, it's unclear how many units there are now and how many people are living in those units. According to the ordinance, there are parking restrictions, and I don't see how those parking restrictions can be met by the way this house is laid out, the way the property is laid out. If you look at the ordinance, it's very specific about footage, etc. Perhaps he's going to try to pave part of that lot to meet the parking restrictions. Ms. Banbridge had mentioned this was all done with a building permit, and it says remodeling of the house. This has significantly changed the house, which was built as a single-family unit, and now it's been modified to be an apartment. Now, so maybe nobody lives on 11th Street except for Ms. Banbridge that's here this evening. I live on 49th Street. My neighborhood is an R2, meaning I could convert my 3-bedroom ranch-style house into a duplex. Now, you say, okay. The problem with that is none of this comes before the city or the planning commission or anything. So residents and homeowners do not have an opportunity to express themselves and their feelings about how this significantly changes their neighborhood and what an effect it has on their property value. Now, I'm not going to change my house into a duplex. I have a lot and a half, and I have the room, I could do it, right? I would not do it. But I do feel that there should be a way, I believe this ordinance needs to be modified so that there is a public hearing process so that we can hear from the residents in the neighborhood. I think most of us here probably, our house is our biggest investment. I know it is for me. And so if I lose value on my house, that's not good. And I spoke to a neighbor who has children. There's other things going on in this house that's been converted that are very concerning, and the police have been called there, and that's a total another matter. But you see how a neighborhood changes. So, as I mentioned, maybe nobody lives on 11th, so they don't really care. But this occurs in all places in Vienna. Around, sorry, I have this upside down. It occurs around, there's parts of 18th Street where it occurs. There's parts between 23rd and 25th Street where it occurs. But you see, it starts to occur up here in Upper Vienna. And I believe, Ethel, your house is in an R3. So anybody, your neighbors can do exactly what's been done on 11th Street. Up around here is the Country Club, Upper Vienna, 51st Street, all that stuff. So you have nice, beautiful homes up there that I do not believe the residents up there realize that somebody can convert a home into an apartment and never, ever have a process where they can come and have a public hearing and speak to the council or to speak to the the Planning Commission. I don't think that was the intent of the ordinance, but I would hope that this council would take a look at it, because you have some very, very upset people down on 11th and 12th Street. And it's not, I know Ms. Banbridge has been here twice, but she is not the only one. So I appreciate your time this evening. That's all I wanted to say about it. Thank you.
Evelyn Harris.
Hi, I'm Ethel Harris. Most everybody knows me by now. I live on 44th Street in Vienna, and I pray to God that that never happens on my street or the war would start. But I'm not here for that. I'm here to peacefully invite all the candidates to a meet and greet October the 1st at 6 o'clock at 1103 10th Street in Vienna. That's the Faith Baptist Church. So people can know who is running for what. And we want it to be very peaceful and nice. Otherwise, I'd have to ask people to leave if they got out of control. So keep it in mind, mark it on your calendar. Everybody's invited that's running. So me, I'm running for my life, nothing else. So, but I'll be there to keep it under control. So I hope everybody makes a showing, because I know everybody in Vienna is wanting to meet people and ask questions. So I think that's all I got to say. Aren't you proud of me?
Brenda Powell.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Powell. I live at 1409 31st Street in Vienna, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening and be able to speak. I happened to look on the agenda, and it speaks about having the update on the Manville property. I don't know whether or not that there's any supporting documents that come with this for the public to be able to follow along to see what this discussion is about, or if it's a presentation, not really sure because it doesn't say. But some things that I'd like to put forward, in regards to it, is it was talked about that the certificate of completion is submitted to the West Virginia DEP for the Riverside property, or partial, for which would be Spencer's Landing. And I'd like to talk about that as far as I'm hoping it's discussed in, what's transpiring with that. The other thing is a report was stated to be submitted for the remediation plan on this plant side property regarding the PCB. What was like to be known is what the reports that was submitted actually contained. Like to know a little bit more about that, if that could be discussed this evening regarding the plant side property. The other thing is it talked about how many land use covenants, or didn't talk about how many land use covenants. So it'd be nice to know how many there are and where they are located, as far as that were identified. The other thing is the supporting documents are so very, very important to the public, to be able to know what's going on in regards to different things. We appreciate, I know that a lot of people do, and myself included, that some of those documents are with the agendas for the different meetings. There's quite a few that there are not. So I'm hoping that that will change and that we will get more information. And that's all I needed to this evening. Thank you.
I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Vienna City Council for September the 24th. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll, that all members of council are present. Having a quorum, we will proceed. The minutes from the regular council meeting held on September the 10th have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
Yes, Mayor. Greg Frazier and I both requested that his public forum comments from that last meeting be included in these minutes. They were not. I would request that the amended minutes reflect those comments, please. And I have a copy of those with me.
The public forum comments are not part of the agenda, so they are not on the record. So unfortunately, Mr. Frazier's remarks will not be included in the minutes. Okay. Anything else?
I would only ask, is there a reason why that is that way?
The meeting hasn't been started until it's called to order. The minutes are the official copy of what transpires in the meeting. Okay? Yeah, Craig, Roger, are you stating that you're going to object to the minutes as posted?
I object to the minutes as posted.
All right, then I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes that were presented from the September the 10th, 2020 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes with Mr. Connolly's objection. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor of approval of the minutes, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? 6-1, motion carries. All right. The report of the treasurer.
5-2.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike, I didn't see you. I apologize for that.
Who was the second on
Me. Don't worry about it, Roger. Just keep going on, Randy. I should have seconded. I was going to vote against anyway.
I'm sorry, Mike, I can't hear you.
Keep going. Go.
All right,
Keep
sir.
going.
Okay. The report of the treasurer will be given at the first regular council session in October. So we'll move on to unfinished business. We have an ordinance on second reading amending Vienna Municipal Code 907.1A dealing with diseased or dead tree removal on private property. Be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that 907.18 be amended as follows. Dead or diseased tree removal on private property. The Vienna Tree and Beautification Commission or the city shall have the right to cause the removal of any dead, dying, diseased, or structurally unsound trees on public or private property within the city limits when such trees constitute a hazard to the public health, safety, and welfare. I'll entertain a motion on second reading for the approval of the ordinance changing 907.18.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve on second reading the ordinance amending 907.18. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the ordinance on second reading amending 907.18, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The second item on our agenda this evening is an ordinance on second reading approving the 2020 replacement pages to the codified ordinances. This is an ordinance to approve the 2020 replacement pages to the codified ordinances. Whereas certain provisions within the codified ordinances should be amended to conform within current state law, and whereas various ordinances of a general and permanent nature have been passed by council, which should be included in the codified ordinances, and whereas council has heretofore entered into a contract with Walter H. Drain Company to prepare and publish such revision which is before council. Now therefore be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that the ordinance, all named as the changes, please be made as replacement pages to the codified ordinances. I'll entertain a motion for the approval on second reading of the replacement pages for 2020.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the replacement pages for 2020. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. The third item on our agenda this evening is an update on the Small Business Relief Fund. Tony Tiano is here to give that to us this evening.
Hi. You may recall back in April, we were here talking about the city received $63,596 of CDBG funds that were to be COVID-related projects. And nobody would have thought that here we are mid-September and we're still working out the details on that. But as I always say, government is hurry up and wait. But anyway, we are very close to having the program officially launched. We hope to have it launched within the next week or so. We have been working all this time with the City of Parkersburg, who is doing a similar program, and also with the Regional Council, who has agreed to administer the program. They've helped us with developing the guidelines. They're going to take applications, review applications, and decide which projects will get funded. So we are very close, but I just wanted to let you know where we were. That is just a brief overview of some of the major points of the program. First of all, to be eligible, a business has to be located in Vienna, which is obvious. It has to be in good standing for at least 1 year as of March the 1st, 2020. Well, wait a minute. They must have been in business for at least 1 year as of March the 1st, 2020. They must be in good standings with the city's fees as of December 31st, 2019. And before any loan is made, the Regional Council will check with the city to make sure that all the fees are up to date. They must either be a low, moderate income business owner and or a business that employs or have previously employed at least 51% low, moderate income workers. They must employ no more than 25 full-time equivalent low, moderate workers, with priority being given to businesses that employ less than 10. For our first cycle that we're going through with this program, we will have a deadline. Once we release it, it will be approximately 3 weeks after the release date for businesses to submit their applications. At that time, the Regional Council will go through them, and those that are 10 or less will be pulled out and given priority. If there's funding left over, then they will move on to the other applications. If we don't get enough applications at this time, then we will just continue on with the program. The maximum loan amount, or I shouldn't say loan amount, but maximum funds per business is $10,000. So with $63,000, we're estimating, assuming that people ask for the maximum and they qualify for it, somewhere between 6 and 7 businesses. As mentioned, Regional Council will be in charge of administering the program. If anybody wants an application, they will contact them directly. They will answer all the questions. However, the city will assist in terms of getting the word out. When we are ready to go, we will do the press release. There will be information on the website, social media. These flyers will be made available and distributed at various locations. So we will do our best to get the word out to people. So just wanted to let you know where we've been. We haven't been sitting around, but it took much longer time than anybody thought to get us this far. Does anybody have any questions?
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
The last item on our agenda this evening is under new business, and it is an update on Manville. Mr. Conley, you requested this to be on there. What are you asking for, sir?
Well, to start with, let's talk about the lower level, which I understand is pretty much done. Do we have any update as far as the documentation that we need? My understanding is that was pretty much forthcoming, and maybe just an update there to start with.
Yeah, with respect to the certificate of completion for the Riverside parcel, that was submitted on September 15th, and included with that it's basically a report that outlines all the required steps from the DEP to complete the voluntary remediation program. And there's two components to that. The first is on the remedial action plan, where all the requirements, which everybody knows, was basically capping a few of the sites to do the actual physical work. That was completed some time ago. That's documented within the report. The second is what Brenda was talking about, which are the land use covenants. The land use covenants basically require those areas to be identified, so any future development or disturbance of those areas would be recorded and of record, and people would contact the DEP. So the certificate of completion is completed for Derek Hancock to review. And there was a couple of things with respect to land use covenants, because the DEP's regulations change, and our mapping had to be updated, but that also was done. And so I'm hoping, that just within the next 30 to 60 days, we'll get an approval on that, and we'll be done with it. Let me just go ahead and jump in, and because with respect to the production side, the update. So everybody knows I've spoken several times about the discovery of the PCBs that were in some of the soil around where the former transformers were. And you've heard me talk about that. A couple of the test results were above the de minimis level for what's called TSCA, which is Toxic Substance Control Act, okay? And if they're in that range, then you can get into EPA jurisdiction, which would have added an entire new layer of regulation to us in getting this cleaned up. So Tom Rebar, and one of the other things, Tom Rebar works for a company called Downstream Strategies. He changed jobs this summer. So that, and COVID, I mean, I generally believe, without COVID and maybe a little bit of Tom's job change, we would have the completion on the Riverside. But anyway, with respect to the PCBs and the issue, he prepared about a 40-page report with all the supporting documentation. And toward your question, Brenda, about the availability of those documentation, I talked with Tom today, and I asked him if the repository was updated, and he said nearly, but not. But I asked him to get those there because I know that people want access to those documents. And but anyway, so when that report went out, it went to the EPA. The West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection supported our request that we stay within the voluntary remediation program. We already had a remedial action plan. We've continued to develop it with respect to the PCBs, and it'll be similar to what's happened with Riverside. That this is the area down along the tracks right by the fence where the spur was. That we cap that area, put a land use covenant on it, and that will be the requirement. So actually, very quickly, the EPA, we were worried they were going to get back to us for some time and delay us moving forward, but they did. They said, that's fine, just keep us in the loop. Go ahead and proceed with the requirements of the voluntary remediation program because it meets the same objectives that we set out, and so that's been approved. So now we are working on just that, getting our remedial action plan approved. A part of the remedial action has already been done, because remember, mostly all we've been dealing with is arsenic, which is naturally occurring, but some of that side is above the levels that require action. So part of the remedial action has already been done on the production side, and now we're working on getting the remedial action for this last piece done, and then it'll be just like the Riverside. We get it complete, we submit our report as far as the remedial action completion. If that's approved, then we submit our certificate of completion, and I hope that, you know, perhaps by near the end of the year, because the actual, just like with the Riverside, and this is the last thing I have, you know, the site that we're talking about, we have, if you'll recall, we have soil from Jackson Park that we had tested, was approved for use as capping soil, so that's already been done. And so then when we actually start the remedial action plan or completing it, we've got, again, Tom Rebar's on site. We have to follow certain requirements in handling the capping. Do that. Derek Hancock will participate and attend when that's done. It should take, again, 3-4 days. Once we actually get it, you know, it's a lot of paperwork and not that much work when you get right down to it. So that's the update on both the Riverside and the production side, and it's kind of the best news I've heard in a while. I was really pleased to get the response from the EPA that we can continue in the program that we're in.
So, sorry, so based on what I'm hearing, there's no further testing that's going to be required by the EPA?
The EPA is out. Okay, right, and that was.
So no further testing needs to be done on the
right. Now,
production
with
side.
respect, if now the DEP could come back and say, well, we want another ground soil, or you know, I mean, I can't say that, but I can say the EPA, the only way they're involved is being carbon copied on the paperwork coming out of the DEP.
Okay, but you're not sure about further testing?
I don't think
with
so,
DEP?
but I can't sit here and say no,
Okay.
because that's, as everybody's seen over the last 4 years, this is a moving target.
One of the things that several things that I wanted for us to be talking about and discussing pertaining to that manufacturing side specifically. And I'd like to just fast forward and hopefully you're right, Councilman Leach, by the end of the year maybe we've got that behind us, but I want to look into the first of the year with that being said and assume that, you know, that we've been given the clearance for that. I guess my question is, once that happens, you know, how do we plan to take that piece of property to market? What kind of marketing plan do we have? Has that something that we've discussed at all?
I have one quick comment on
Sure.
that before whatever the mayor or anyone else might want to discuss. You know, that I think that just like with the planning on the Riverside, you know, we've had ideas, but also on the production side, I don't really think there's a lot we can do until we have, in essence, that golden ticket, that certificate of completion. Of course, we don't have an economic development director. Currently, there has been interest over the 4 years, I believe. I've heard nothing, you know, that I've ever been in a meeting or anything, you know, but there's occasional interest expressed in the site. And, but the question always is, when's it going to be out of the program? Well, you've seen it'll be out of the program, what's out of the program. So anyway, that's my comment about it.
So the answer to your question, Roger, is the Wood County Development Authority, which you know is Lindsay Pearsall, is well aware of the property. It's one of the larger tracts that is basically shovel ready. It has all the utilities on site. It has massive electric capabilities because all of the grid is still there from when John's Manville was in place. As Mr. Leach said, you really cannot do anything marketing wise until we get that certificate of completion. Until we have that paperwork, no one is going to make a serious interest in that piece of property, but we are working at it. They are aware of it, and it is discussed at every development authority meeting that I go to.
It's my understanding, correct me, Councilman Leach, that once that property is sold on the upper side and we go into a building project of any kind, if that concrete, once that concrete is removed, don't we then have some potential, maybe not we, but whoever buys that, have some potential remedial work to do underneath of the concrete that's now acting as a cap?
Sure, that's a fair question. And so when this whole process started, and for lack of a better way to express it, the testing grid is established. All right, we had the footprint of John's Manville, and we knew where the transformers were, where the labs where anything that there could be constituents of concern were possibly located, and that's what guided the testing requirements for the site. All right, So anywhere that they thought there could be potential contaminations, like Site 47, which is up on the cap, and it had a transformer up there. And so we drilled through that concrete pad, and we tested, and we did identify PCBs, and then we tested outward until we delineated it, and we knew we were no longer into those. And that will be a section that will have a land use covenant. The other thing to keep in mind is that concrete pad has been there for 100+ years, so it's impermeable. And so it's not likely that anywhere other than those sites that have already been tested based on what was located on top of them would be of any concern. But eyes wide open, caveat emptor, buyer beware. All right, any potential buyer will be advised, of course. There are land use covenants restrictive on this property. And so say, for example, somebody did want to come in, as the mayor mentioned, and said shovel ready, and they want to clear that cap, okay? Well, anywhere that's been designated by a land use covenant, they'll have to adhere to the requirements of the DEP, the same as we do when we cap them. But it's not unmanageable. It's like the, so for example, and so they may do a little bit of further remediation to serve their purposes, okay? And so, but yeah, I think by and large, any area of concern, any potential buyer is going to have a real good handle on what was there, what's been done about it, what's been identified and tested, and so they'll have a good understanding of what we required. But yeah, so that's, I guess, the long answer to a short question.
I guess my comment and my concern to that would be that, I think that concrete that needs to be removed and the potential for remediation underneath of that concrete is certainly going to have an adverse effect on the value of that property. And in saying that, I think there is several things that we need to be doing and we need to be looking at while we're waiting on the clearance from the DEP. And I understand that, it's difficult to have a conversation about, is it going to be manufacturing? Is it going to be retail? However, I think we need to do our homework and have a little bit of an idea about where we're at today. So when that time comes, we're prepared. And I don't think we are prepared in as much as, and you all step in and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I recall where there's been any ROI modeling work done at all on that piece of property. I think with the issues with the potential concrete removal remediation, and there's another option. If you left that cap there, you could literally haul in, I guess, thousands of yards of dirt and build up over top of that to have it build ready. But either one of those scenarios is going to be very, very, very expensive to the point that it is absolutely going to have a detrimental effect on the value of the ground itself. So I think when we look at a ROI on that piece of property, we need to not be thinking so much about the value of the land, but the jobs created. There's all kinds of models that tells us if we create a job, what's the residual value to the financial effect of that. We need to potentially do some ROI modeling that tells us that for every $1 million of revenue, just to throw out a number that we get by creating those jobs, that will that will actually add to the revenue to the city. Excuse me. It'll add to the revenue stream. The other thing that we have to look at would be the sales tax per million, for example. So, if we do an ROI modeling, it's going to give us a good idea what that return on our investment is going to be. What it's going to be, and is it a 2-year return on our investment? Is it a 10-year, a 50-year? I think we need to be doing some of this financial modeling on that piece of property to determine when we get a buyer, when we get an offer, that work's already done and behind us. And I really, really think that project, that part of the project needs to be started and be ready when the project's done.
Yeah, so with that, on top of that, with the concrete stuff, so I know we've spent $2.5 million on the project so far. And we're not done yet, it sounds like to me. So is there a chance that it's gonna come back on the city, hey, we get a business interest, but you're gonna have to tear out the concrete and do all that stuff for us? I mean, what's the likelihood of that? Are we gonna continue to put more money into this project? So I guess that's kind of a general question. I know you might not know off the top of your head, but it seems like to me, if we're attracting a business and we have stuff, or if I was a business owner, I want you guys to fix that land, because I'm not gonna pay for it. I mean, is that a more money going to be sunk into Johns Manville? Do we know? I mean, estimate or?
Depending on what company would be interested, there is literally acres of concrete down there that is good enough that you could play basketball on it today. It was under roof for, almost 100 years, and so it's not weathered. If someone came in and wanted to build a facility and wanted parking lots, it would be instant parking. You would not spend all of those dollars in order to have those parking spaces, which you would have to have. But it just depends. I've had meetings with a company out of Akron, Ohio that specializes in properties like this. They wanted us to list it with them so that they could try to market it, and we're just not ready for that. And we don't have a clean bill of health that we can say we're market ready. When Mr. Leach gets finished with all of the final reports and we get a report that gives us land use covenants and we know what the restrictions are, that changes things. But there's tremendous potential for that piece of property.
Mayor, don't you think it would be prudent on our part to have an ROI evaluation and some modeling done so we know where we're at when that time comes, instead of waiting till we get the clean bill of health and then try to figure out where we're at so we'll know where we're going? I mean, and you're talking about the concrete, and I don't mean to be argumentative, but the odds of someone building a facility on that piece of property that's conducive to using the concrete that's already there for a parking lot, that's kind of like winning the lottery. And you talk about that piece of property, being shovel ready. Man, you're using that term awfully loosely. I'm putting in an industrial park that is shovel ready. And, when you compare what I'm talking about that's shovel ready with that down there, there's a big difference, folks. I'm telling you, my ground's level. It's got the facilities already there. It's got the 440, the 3-phase, the water, the sewer. And literally, shovel ready means somebody can come on my piece of property tomorrow and start digging a footer. That's a long, long ways from being shovel ready, and it's I won't say tens, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars away from being shovel ready. So there again, I'm saying that the ground itself, I'm kind of saying that there's not a lot of value there. So we need to start looking at the ROI based on what we can get out of it after we get some job creation, we get some B&O tax money coming in, we get some sales tax money coming in. Those are all financial models that we can do, and we need to have that done.
Yeah, Roger, I know you're not going to be here, but with respect to the future of Manville, and I think that, and when you talk about ROI, he's talking about return on investment. We've got 243, Mike, as of the last accounting. We've projected since 2016, when this all started, to be between 2,250,000, 2,500,000. I think we'll be pretty well below by the time we get this certificate of completion. I got bills here, okay, that just came in. But these are the final testing and report writing. They're not the big, expensive monitoring costs. And when you talk about a development plan, I am running for re-election, and it's not a plug, but I'm thinking forward like this as well. And we've got not just this opportunity, which I do see as an opportunity. I think some of the things that you're talking about are just speculation about what might be or might not be possible. But not just the Manville site, but our downtown, this entire segment of Vienna, I think does need to be our next focus. What opportunities do we have? They just took the canopy down off the front of Vitrolite because it was coming down. We've got some blighted property, and this is all within that block. We've got all of the retail along the mall and the new development there. And of course, we're competing with, brick and mortar's trying to compete with, all the internet purchasing and so on, and trying to stay competitive. So maybe something a little different look than retail. And like you say, the types of jobs that come in and the types of opportunities we might be able to recruit. And I think that is the next phase. And I think that I agree with you, that we do need to be thinking about that. But and just my view is that's a little bit bigger picture than just Manville. But that's almost 20 acres right in the heart of Vienna. That's hard to come by. And it's got its baggage. There's no question. But it also has opportunity because we're at so that would be my response as to how to look on, thinking forward about a return on investment for the city of Vienna, not just with respect to Manville, but how it can impact that entire segment of kind of downtown Vienna.
Yes, sir, Bruce?
For the last week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, there's been a lot of activity on the Spencer's Landing around the oil pump that's there. I hope that, I don't know if they're capping or putting in a new equipment or whatever it is, but I hope they are also being monitored, because if they cause a environmental problem, I hope that we won't have to be able or have to pay for the funds for their cleanup. So I hope that they are being monitored. I don't know, but I would suggest that someone needs to look into going down there and see what's going on as far as the activities going on there.
The owner of the well came to see me. They're basically cleaning it. I don't know whether they're going to install new piping or whatever they're doing, Bruce, but that is a concern of mine also. We will inspect it. That one track where that well actually sits is excluded from our property as far as the cleanup goes. So he has every right to go in there and work on his oil well. But, when he gets done, we'll make sure it's cleaned up. Okay? Anything else this evening? All right. Then we will move on to council comments.
I just got a few brief ones. Kim, I agree with you what you said about bringing up some of these old ordinances. They're out of date. We need to do that as a council, whether it's this one or the next one sitting. So I do agree with you on that point. And another thing, I lost my train of thought. I want to shout out to Craig Metz. I called him about an issue the city was having on the street, and he answered me within 5 minutes. So I want to publicly thank Craig Metz for that. And another thing I want to talk about, kind of what Bruce went on. As a councilman, Mayor Rapp, whether it's you or Mr. Smith, who's our next mayor, I think we need to do a better job. You've got a phenomenal secretary out there who, there's a lot of things in the city that go on that I have no idea what's going on. And as a councilman, we're your ambassadors for the people. So to me, it'd be neat to have a little email or something, because I didn't know what was going on with Spencer's Landing. I didn't know what was going on 35th Street paving. There's just all kinds of things that I don't know. And as a councilman, I think we need to do a better job of letting us know what's going on. Like I say, shoot an email out, whatever, put in a Dropbox. But that'd be appreciative from me. And I know you guys as well, too, because there's been a number of things we don't know about. So just better communication is what we need. And the last thing, I want to ask you about the street paving, because this is another thing I found out. I guess all the street paving has been put on hold this year. We're not going to pave any streets. Is that true or false, or just?
No, the major projects that we always bid out where we spend $500,000, we did put that on hold until we see where our money goes with the COVID. It's hard to make plans for those major expenses when, our retail businesses are shut down or very limited on the amount of customers that they can have. It's just a matter of caution.
Okay, so I guess that leads to my next question, because I don't know what we've done as far as, I see Parkersburg doing their things, but I haven't been privileged with information about what we've done to scale back our spending since all this COVID stuff. Do we have any kind of update or something on that, along that lines?
Well, a couple things. One, every month you receive a reconciliation of funds. It tells you every dollar that the city has, okay? So if you look at that reconciliation of funds, you will notice that, bottom line, the city's assets have grown considerably, because we have cut back on spending. We've authorized the purchase of two police cruisers and some other small things, but for the most part, we have a spending freeze on until, you know, the revenues are predictable. You know, you can't just go. This COVID has got things turned upside down so much that if you can tell me what's going to happen 6 months from now, you're better than I am. No one can predict where the economy is going to go. You know, last council meeting we had someone that made some comments about the revenues. And you know, the only way that you can accurately compare that is to go back a year ago and look and see where we were a year ago and what our revenues were. And so, you know, for the first quarter, it was like $965,000. And then the second quarter came in, I believe, at $785,000. And the 985 was actually more money than we got the year before. And the 785 was $105,000 less than what we got. But you have to remember that the Grand Central Mall was shut down for a number of weeks. And so there's no surprise there. If the stores aren't open and aren't selling things, our revenues are going to drop the same as theirs. So from a financial standpoint, the city is in excellent shape. We have, you know, received $915,000 from the CARES Act as reimbursement. And so even though we've lost some sales, the bottom line is still doing just fine. The other thing that I would say to you, Councilman Elam, is, and I may be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure I'm close. In the 4 years that we've served together on council, you've been in my office one time.
All right, now, Randy, stop there.
No,
You're making it
no.
personal.
I'm just telling
know?
you, there are 6 people that sit here at this table.
Do I still have the floor, or are you talking
Well, I'm
now?
answering your question.
Well,
So you
answer,
can
then
answer
I'll
back when I'm
rebuttal back
finished.
to you. Here we
Okay?
go. Here we go, Randy.
If you want to know anything that's going on, my door is always open.
Gosh dang it, Randy.
You are welcome to call me anytime, and I will tell
Oh,
you
boy.
the best that I can.
Randy, the whole thing is you're the mayor. This is your full-time job. I'm an elected official. I do what I can when I can for the citizens of Vienna. You are the go-to guy. I just found out right now we got $900,000 from that CARE Act. I never knew that. Why did I not know that as a councilman? I wouldn't be asking these things, but you did. Did you tell me that, or did you let us know?
We've been giving you updates, yes, but the grand total, we just got another disbursement of $144,000. So the total's $915,000.
But the whole thing about when we started this whole thing, Randy Rapp, and this is where you and I, we clash heads every day, is when I remember when I got elected to council member, you took me and Roger Conley in that back room and you said, hey, I want you guys to be proactive on the council. I just don't want you guys to show up and vote. And that's what we've done for 4 years. And it seems like it's just not going over because we are asking questions. And then, like you say, you bring up this with me. That's fine. Just move on then.
I'll answer any question that you ask me at any time.
I've just asked you to give us shoot out some emails to us, let us know what's going on so we don't find out things here on Thursday night when we come in city council, some of the things that are going on in the city. That's all I'm asking. That's my whole objective of that question was. And how you talked about me coming to your office one time, that's probably right. You know, I don't come to your office.
All right. Okay.
Sorry, you did.
No, I yield to you, brother.
It sounds like, and I'm just kind of hearing bits and pieces of numbers here like Councilman Elam's talking about, but it sounds like if you look at revenue to date compared to revenue the same time last year, and you add in the $915,000 of CARES Act money that we've received, if anything, we might be slightly ahead in revenue if you include that $915,000. Is that a good analysis or not?
I don't know the answer to that, Roger. I just know that Amy Roberts balances the books for us every month, and Councilman Leach gives out the report every month.
That's so vague it doesn't tell us anything.
But the numbers are all there. All you have to do is look at them and analyze what's there.
No, Mayor. I have I'm as versed as anybody reading a financial statement. That's not a financial statement, that's an overview, and it's a very vague overview at best. So I'm gonna ask you, maybe for the next meeting, since you don't know now, what is our revenue to date? What is our revenue compared to the same time last year? And when you put the $916,000 in there, where does that leave us? And does that justify not doing any streets? And I'm not belittling the fact that it didn't need done, but we just voted at the last meeting to paint a building. Is there more of a reason not to paint that building than there was not to blacktop our streets? Not saying that it don't need done, I'm just making a comparison. You know, and I appreciate the fact that because of COVID, you're being conservative. It's always been my contention over the last 4 years that we should be conservative, period, and we should watch how we spend the citizens' money. And if we was not going out spending money on things like buying houses on 29th Street just in case we need to build a new city building, then we wouldn't need to be so concerned about not being able to blacktop our streets and take care of our infrastructure today because COVID-19 happened. We need to be conservative all the time, not when we have a problem. Then we're prepared for the problems when the problems arise and not depend on the government, which is our money, it's our taxpayer money, that's paying the $916,000 to backfill the city.
You know, I have to give an update because you did ask me this last. I was going to do it when you got finished, but I'll do it now. Last meeting, you asked me 3 times if the painting of the senior center was a budgeted item, and you asked me what the line item was, and it's 905-40-15. And it was a line item that was budgeted in for $22,000, and the low bid was accepted for approximately $16,000. And the reason why that it was approved was the senior center's closed right now. There is no one in there. This is the perfect time to move all the equipment, all the tables, all the stuff out of the way and paint where there are no seniors in there. But I find it extremely interesting that those same numbers that you asked me about are the same numbers that Mr. Black gave you on Friday as he was going to Erie, Pennsylvania. And so I can't imagine why you would question me 3 times whether it was a line item when you already knew the answer.
I did not.
Well, Mr. Black is insistent that you did.
Budgeted. I asked if it was a budgeted item.
Yes.
And I never got the answer until tonight. I asked where it was in the budget. I even sent an email out, and I'll give you a copy of it, sir, if you'd like to have it, to your financial director. And I asked the question, is it budgeted? If so, where was it at in the budget? What was the line item? I received no response. The first response I got was tonight. Now, I only use that as an example to say this. I'm not saying that senior center did not need to be painted. I'm sure that it did. And I understand you're saying that it was budgeted. But Mayor, blacktopping our streets were budgeted too.
Yes. And, you know, unfortunately, a $500,000 expenditure as opposed to a $16,000 expenditure is a huge difference. And, you know, come spring, we'll still be in this budget year. The money's still there. We can bid these things out and we can pave the streets in the spring.
And a house here and a house there soon adds up to $500,000 too.
Any other comments this evening?
I have one brief one.
Yes,
and
sir.
it's just going to what Councilman Elam said in terms of the role of council. So each of us are a liaison to a different part of the city, you know, and in the time that I've been liaison to Manville, I've been asked and given, who knows, 15 updates, 20 updates, which is fine. And I've spent a lot of time trying to understand and prod and keep that project going, and it's been maddening how slow it is. You know, but like, there's other things I would like to know too, you know, but I don't think it's the responsibility of the city administration to spoon feed, or a lot of times there are demands for information that's readily available to council people, and sometimes you got to do your own homework, okay? And also, you know, like for example, Mike, I'd like to know what's going on with our rec sports with COVID. You know, I haven't heard anything about that. You know, Roger, I think you're on the Tree and Beautification Committee. You know, we have Jack come in, but, you know, we had mentioned a year and a half ago that we have such a dynamic floral and beautiful city, that maybe we'd want to incorporate a little bit of that into our website. Nothing ever happened. You know, so it's a two-way street. You know, if you want information, yeah, you can get in. You know, and I'm fortunate enough to live close. I stop in Amy's office. I've been in, you know, if I got a question for the police chief, fire chief, I call them. And if they have a question, they call me. But so it's a give and take. And you know, and you know, there's a lot of difference between being proactive and just being demanding. So I just think we need to work a little bit better together as we move into this next term. Share information if you want to know something. You know, like I said, sometimes it's on you. Roger, if you want to know if it's a budget line item, go get the budget and look. All right? Why is it someone else's job to look at the budget for you?
I did. I was unable to find it.
Well, you said you're as good as anyone about reading a budget. It's in there. So anyway, that's my comment.
You know, that's just totally uncalled for, Councilman. You talk on one side about getting along better in the next, and then you come up with snide comments like
Roger,
that.
you have insulted people for the last 4 years.
Gentlemen, we're not gonna go there this evening,
but
all right?
yeah, you know,
Okay?
you can't dish
You
it
know,
out.
there's
All
a
right.
huge
Gentlemen,
difference.
We're not gonna go there this evening.
right,
If you
I'm
wanna
not
talk
going
about it,
there.
talk about it after council. All right?
I-
Any other comments this
yes,
evening?
I do. We talked about the tree and beautification. We talked about rec. Mike and I was talking about a $10 million budget, and we're talking about what a $10 million budget looks like. We weren't talking about a department that's the rec department or the tree and the beautification department that's got a $20,000, $30,000 budget. We're talking about the citizens' money. We're talking about a $10 million budget that we want to be transparent. You know, if you want to talk about tree and beautification and rec every day, I'm sure we can do that. But we're more interested in a $10 million budget, not a $20,000 department.
Any other comments this evening?
For the record, Mayor Rapp, you've never called me, so you got keeping score. It's 0-0. So.
Yeah, you text all the time. How many times have I answered your text? But anyway, let's go. With that, meeting adjourned.